For you as the coach, what does it mean to get this program back to a postseason game?
Yeah, it's a huge credit to this year's team. I think this year's group has worked extremely hard. We don't talk a lot about goals, but it's a definite goal to get to the postseason. We talk maybe about that more in the offseason. So I think it's a huge credit to the kids that are here now. I also think it's a huge credit to the kids that have been here over the last 3 years. This has been a build. Came close, if you want to call it that, last year, at least in our minds. I thought we came close. But I just think it's cool. It's been a steady build, and I think those years that I remember senior day, the first year, telling Jade and the others, like, I hope when this happens, and I hope there's an NCAA tournament at some point, but when we crack into that postseason, I hope that you feel a part of that. And same goes for our staff, because again, 4 years of work through a pandemic, all of that sort of stuff. We came in with a goal of making this. Making the postseason kind of the established goal, and then hopefully you beat down the door to the NCAAs, and it feels good to get there now.
And also to get a home game. I won't say that may be something that was talked about, but to get a home game in the postseason and the WNIT, another opportunity.
Yeah, I think it shows that we didn't just squeak by into the postseason. I think you're always nervous with each loss, especially the at Duquesne loss, or you can look back to a few losses. Last year, you probably look back to maybe a game or two that goes differently, and maybe you find a way into the tournament. I felt comfortable. You never know on Selection Sunday, but I felt comfortable that we had solidified our spot in the tournament, and then all of a sudden it turned to, wait, could we get a home game? Could we be seated high enough to get a home game? For that to happen, to not just sneak in and kind of more break through, I think is an extra feather in the cap, so to speak.
Given that all 5 starters come back and you have a large number of bench players coming back, this is a good experience for this team to have.
Yeah, I think we talk about this being a huge credit to this year's team, but I think this is huge for the future of the program. I think whether you're talking about recruiting, of what it means that now you've kind of broken through and say that you're a postseason team, making that next step to the NCAA is always huge, but I think you've shown that you can put yourself in the pool and in the ballpark for that. But yeah, I think it's a springboard into next season, no doubt. I think anytime you get into the postseason, it establishes that credit for this year, kind of establishes, if you want to call it, tradition. But I think probably even more so than that, like just that experience. I thought the second time that we won the tournament and won the championship at Bucknell, it wouldn't have happened if those kids didn't experience it the first time. And I think the motivation, next year, it's great that we have a lot of potential, but there's going to be ups and downs. And I think when you get to those downs next year, you can point to the fact that we've been there before. Hopefully there's a big game that you're preparing for. You can talk about the fact that you've been there before. You can kind of reference whatever happens here, in the game against Penn, hopefully more. But you can reference that, and I think that'll mean something. It's not this far-off dream for them.
I know they're enjoying the moment of being in the postseason, but how do you get them to, I guess, change their mindset to not just being excited to just getting there, but like you said, making this a yearly event? Maybe not the WNIT, you want to be in the NCAA, but have that goal of being in the postseason every single year. Make it being expected to be there.
Well, I think the first thing is, you're not in any way looking past Penn. I think this is a tall order. Huge respect for them, and have watched them a lot over the years just because I love their coach and love their style of play. So this is going to be a tough task. But, talking to our players about like, hey, this is the first step. And if we win, so you're not looking past it. But I think when we first started the week, talked about the path to maybe making a run and all of that stuff. Now, you peel that back, and once you kind of get past that excitement, everything is focused on Penn. Everything is focused on getting to that first game. So, yeah, I think it's a cool thing, but I don't want to get to 8 o'clock on Thursday night and say that was a cool experience. I think we have an opportunity in front of us right now that it's not just getting in. You're not the 16 seed playing the 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. You have a home game. You're going against a team that's in your tier, so to speak, that this is a very winnable game. It's going to be cool no matter what happens that we can say this was a postseason team. You hang a banner, all of that stuff. But I think there's a huge opportunity for us to win a game, to play well in front of our fans, to hopefully garner some new fans in the area. And I think our kids have a lot of pride in making that happen.
Scouting report on Penn. They battled for the Ivy League title most of the year. What do you see?
Well, the Ivy League is tough, man. You look at Penn, obviously a really, really good team. You look at some of their losses and their record, but, Columbia probably could have and maybe should have been an NCAA team. Princeton is an NCAA team. Harvard was probably 11 seconds away from calling themselves an NCAA team. So they're a really battle-tested group. Fortunately or unfortunately, I know those guys pretty well because a lot of those kids we recruited. There's a couple kids on our roster that Penn recruited. We play similar styles. They have a lot of length that has bothered teams, and I would expect that that's going to be the case for us a little bit on Thursday. They're really quick. They're really athletic. They're very interchangeable in their offense, and that causes some problems on their defense, like I said, with their length. So you hate to play a friend, but consider him a friend. We've been watching a lot of the same recruited a lot of the same kids. We've been watching each other's team. I think there's a great mutual respect, and in some ways it'll be fun tomorrow night. And even the story of Mandy McGurk for them. Her sister was in our first recruiting class at Bucknell and won our first championship at Bucknell. So there's a lot of familiarity with it, which is a cool thing. But I think first and foremost, a great experience ahead for our kids.
So say you got former teammates going to play against each other. You got Ayanna at Penn,
correct,
against one of her best friends at Howland Springs.
Yeah, and Ayanna's probably in that group of kids that we talked to and wanted to have here at Richmond. She's been on campus a few times. She's made a few shots in that gym next to us. So I think it's a cool thing. There's a lot of side stories just because of the familiarity of our two schools, the way our teams play. I think the way that he runs his program, I've always admired. Going back to my Division III days, he was somebody that was kind of a mentor for me at this level and on the academic side of it. And then you kind of have some of those side stories too, former teammates. Obviously Maggie Dugan, being a Philly kid. Maybe she's one of the few that wanted this on the road instead of a home game to get back to her fans. And I know she's won a few games in the Palestra as well during high school. But I think it'll be a fun game to watch. Maybe it's one of those that the two teams know each other so well that it maybe turns into some ugliness with it. But I think two really, really good teams that have had great years that I think are still going to be around here for the future as well.
Hey, Aaron, what about the Atlantic 10? You got a lot of teams in this tournament. Do you sense a growth for the conference that could pay some dividends moving forward?
I think, when the goal is the NCAA tournament, you look at it and say, well, the A10 was a one-bid league this year. And that's a fact, right? Like, we can't change that. Do I think that Rhode Island could have caused some noise in the tournament? Absolutely. Do I think that UMass, could have done the same, and hopefully St. Louis, gives Tennessee a run there. But to have 5 teams in the A10 in the tournament, I think maybe we were maybe the only, and maybe one other team that had 5 teams in the top 100 of the net rankings. Like, that's huge, And so maybe it wasn't multiple bids to the NCAA tournament, but when you have 6 teams playing in the postseason, man, like you start getting into ACC, SEC levels there, and I know that there's maybe a gap between our conferences and theirs, but I think the level of coaching, it's still a young league. There's some teams that are losing kids, but we didn't mention St. Joe's. Like, St. Joe's just as good a team as anybody else in this league, and they've got dang near everybody back as well. So I think it says a lot about this year for the A10, but kind of, Bob, as you alluded to, there's still some good players in this league that are going to be around here for a little bit too.
You've had a substantial layoff. How will that affect the team? And do you worry about something about nerves? Because nobody on this team has ever been in something like this before?
I think there's an excitement, but I think anytime you care about the results, there's going to be some nerves, and we talk about being prepared. For us as a staff, we're incredibly prepared. I feel prepared for it, but there's still some nerves because it means so much to you with the result. Maybe more so than the break can go one of two different ways, right? There can be some rust right there, or, the flip side is the last time we were out there was our 3rd game in 3 days. That was really hard too, so you can say we've only played, do the math, Aaron, 3 games in a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks, almost the same thing for Penn. They've played 2 games over 3 weeks, and those are both against the same team, playing against Princeton. That can go a couple different ways. I think maybe a little bit of our focus is, we won 2 games at the tournament, but out of those 3 games, we really didn't have any of those that were great first quarters, and that's something we've taken a lot of pride in. We've started games really well this year. We didn't up in Delaware. So I think the focus for us right now is we've got to make sure that we can find a way to start a game well offensively. We've had some good defensive stretches, but we've got to find some ways to put the ball in the basket early in the game and hopefully set the tone in our favor.
How do you balance the team embracing this stage of being in the postseason while just making it another game? Or can you make it just another game?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and maybe something every coach kind of battles a little bit. You know, I want our kids to think this is really cool. You know, the texts that go back and forth in March with former players, former teams that were NCAA teams, man, like some of them maybe now have been married and have kids, so that can maybe supplant the hey, this was the coolest moment of my life. But like those kids, some of them will say that's still the coolest day of my life, that the day that we won the Patriot League tournament. So I want our kids to think that postseason basketball is like the mecca, man. Like seeing that our guys, you know, what they did last year is incredible. You still get chills. Us, we weren't a part of it, still get chills. You know, I can imagine for those guys, for the Mooney family, all of that stuff. You see that and you realize what March means to everybody. So you want to make this a cool thing, but at the same point, you got to kind of tuck that away, knowing that, hey, guys, we're going to come back to this. You know, in a month, we can talk about this. 4 years from now, reunions, we can come and talk about the banner and talk about the gap that we kind of fixed, so to speak, and getting a postseason banner up there. But you don't want to waste the opportunity like we talked about earlier. There's a task at hand. There's, you know, this isn't, you know, like I said, it's two evenly matched teams playing, so one of us is going to get a postseason win. That's going to be a really cool thing. You don't want to waste that come Thursday night. Wish you would have done something different. Next week, say, hey, that was cool, but next year we have to win. Like we had a chance to win right now, and I think that's got to be the focus for us this week.
I was reading the article from what Coach was saying about this was, you know, a process, kind of a building process, and you guys have improved your win total each of the first 3 years, and now you're back in the postseason. How does it feel to kind of break through and get back to the postseason?
I mean, it's a great feeling to have the opportunity to play at the end of the season and another chance to win some games and make a run. And just still be playing at this time of the year is a great feeling.
You had that late season run. You got to the conference semis of the A-10 tournament. Where was the confidence amongst the team that you felt that you were going to play at least one more game in the postseason?
I think we were pretty confident. We knew that we lost a few games early in conference play, but we kind of pulled it together, and we knew we were playing our best basketball going into the A-10 tournament, and we made a run there, and we were confident that we were going to get another chance to play in the postseason.
What do you know about Penn?
I know they're a good team. They have some good players. It's going to be a good matchup. We have to come ready to play if we want to get a win.
When you saw the bracket and you saw that not only were you in the postseason, you actually get to host a game, what did that mean for the team?
It means that we get another chance to get a win on our home floor this season, which is a great opportunity to have.
Is this in some ways kind of a proof that the program is progressing? I mean, I think the last postseason bid was 2015. To have this with all 5 starters back and a lot of you bench players back, I mean, this is a sign of growth, right?
Yes, for sure. I mean, getting to this point is a big step, and knowing that we have pretty much everyone coming back next year is good to know too. I mean, we also got to a 20-win season this year, which was a great accomplishment, and that's another good thing that we accomplished this year.
Did this season, personally for you, exceed your expectation?
I mean, I think we all had pretty high expectations coming into the season with our preseason workouts. Like, we knew what we could do. We knew all the pieces that we had, and we knew that if we all played together and played our best basketball, that we could have a season like this. So,
was there a point that you guys started to feel like it was clicking in during the year? Like you mentioned, you know, at the end of the year, you felt really confident about how you were getting better. Was there kind of a turning point or anything, not necessarily totally specific, but just a time frame where you guys felt like, hey, we're really getting this?
yeah, I think especially coming after that Rhode Island loss, we really came together after that, and I think everything started to click. We started to play together more, and that's kind of when we went on our run and how we ended up where we are now.
Go ahead.
You've had a nice little layoff since the A-10 tournament. Is that a problem, or how do you think that will affect you?
I mean, it's definitely going to be different. We had almost 2 weeks off coming into this game, but we've been practicing. We were here over spring break practicing. We push each other every day in practice, do things game speed. So I think as long as we come out ready to play, we should be good.
How do you think you guys can use this accomplishment into next season? I don't want to look too far ahead, but you was talking about building something special, 20 wins, you got a postseason berth, and get all 5 starters back for next season. How can you use that moving forward to what you can do next year?
I think we can use this as a baseline, but set bigger goals for next year, that we don't want to just get into the WNIT. We want to win the A10s. We want to play in March Madness. So I think it just shows that we're capable of doing that, and we need to bring that into next year.